This is the original CIN, the Collective Intelligence Network.
Hello, sinners. What does that mean? My Collective Intelligence Network agents, that's what that means. So I'd like to try and break down a little bit about what I've conceptualized for this whole Collective Intelligence Network. So for some time, I'd been thinking of many different scenarios and many different problems, and I'd come up with some resolutions to those, which obviously could be better assisted by further input from others, because as we know, all of us are smarter than one of us. However, I have solved a lot of the problems with my own individual thought, which I liken to something which we can call a spit. So you can solve a problem individual thought, which is what I've done, and in my previous videos I've actually demonstrated a lot of those things and have put that out there for other people to be able to think about, and then to provide their own insights on. And then once we have enough insights, what we can then do, well, I've solved, when I talk about other people looking at these things, then when other people contribute and think about these things and come up with their own insights and their own ways of doing things, then, as I just said before, all of us are smarter than one of us. So when we solve problems all together, ultimately we come up with much better solutions, because we've got more diverse inputs, more ways of moving around something and looking at it from different points of references, different life experiences, different cultural backgrounds, etc., etc. So I call those things a spat. So we've got a spit, which is what an individual does, and then a spat, which is wherein we solve the problems all together. Now, these things go into potentially on the YouTube platform, something which I've called a spittoon, which is the comment section. Now, once we have enough spits in the spittoon, what we then do is we can cut and paste that, or you can even do that, and put it into like a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT, and ask it to find what it sees through all these comments. What's the common threads? What are the trends? What are the insights? What's the knowledge? And then when you get an answer back for that, then you put that back into the community for people to look at. So then people can appraise as to whether it's factual or not. And then that would then further inform everybody who's actually reading through that to evolve the way they think about the situation or the problem. Now, there's another aspect to this, which is where I'm sort of looking for help from you guys, because this is a very, very big concept that I'm trying to work through. And when you've got a great idea for a product, for example, that you want to commercialize, either you're well enough resourced to be able to fund it and finance it yourself, or you know someone who's in a position of power and influence who can help you achieve that. Generally, they want a cut, as it were. And that's how things work, I guess. But that said, if you're not in a bracket that fits those two categories, then it's very difficult to try and get your idea up and running. One way around that, however, is to incorporate blockchain technology. And so with the blockchain technology, the person who's come up with the idea can then be the first block in the chain. And then all the other people, the community in this collective intelligence network who contribute to that, could be other blocks to it. And then with something called a weighted contribution, then people can be allocated proportional shares to the commercialization of that product. So any profits that come from that, once it's been realized via the platform, then they will get Bitcoin or Ethereum or some other digital currency, which can be converted into local currency cash. But however, what I'd also like to be able to incorporate into all that is a percentage of that turnover would be allocated as part of a fund, and this fund would form something called a universal basic income, a UBI, so that people are actually on the platform, in the platform, can actually benefit and get a share of the money that's actually been generated via this whole organization, as it were. And also, more so than that, people get voting contributions, because this is all going to be forming part of something called a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. And in that, it means there's no boss, there's no owner, there's no manager as such. It's run by people, it's run by the communities. And this ties into something which I've called a STOP, Suggested Thoughts on Passion Projects. So when people are passionate about things, they're more inclined to want to be involved in them. And so whether it's for a commercial opportunity, or whether it's for localized community gain and benefit, put a water well in for us to be able to not have to walk 10 kilometers to draw water, for example. And in terms of the third world and the first world, obviously there's a very big disconnect between the way people live their lives. And in that regard, what I'd like to see this platform do is help uplift the third world so that they're more of parity or at parity to the standards of living that the West enjoys. And in that regard, with this UBI, this universal basic income, then there will be a weighting so that the people who are worse off in many respects would get a higher return, so that we can sort of lift and try and create some equilibrium between countries and the third world and the first world. So, for example, a farmer in Nigeria who barely can make ends meet will have more weight applied to their voting than what a Swiss banker would, for example. However, that's not to say there's not poverty in the first world countries either. So there's a lot of mechanisms that need to be incorporated so that there is a balanced and just way of distribution, so that we can try and lift everybody's baseline up and give everybody a great quality of life. And that's the ideal for what I'm trying to sort of develop here with the Collective Intelligence Network, where we can solve the problems individually, but then we can solve the problems all together, and then we can get our saints, our suggested artificial intelligence network thoughts, to help us solve them at an even higher level. And then we can work towards this bigger, brighter future that is surely there. Now, what I need help with, obviously, is it's one thing to be doing YouTube videos, though the reach can go a lot further with the incorporation of an app. I'll be starting an app course very soon. However, I'm not greatly confident in my abilities to be knowing everything that I potentially would need to know for it. And that's where I put it to the community, and also to funding, I guess, to help develop this whole concept and this way of thinking. I guess it's paradigm shifting in many respects, and hasn't really been done before, insofar as having a decentralized autonomous organization which can be globally operating, so that every person who is within that community can contribute. And then, because in the third world and the first world, the numbers might be more people, for example, in certain countries than there are in other countries. And so there needs to be some sort of weighting applied to the demographics as well, so that you're not, because if this is like a in a DAO, the majority rule, so we don't have a situation where the majority have got control over something. We need to try and create a weighted balance so that it's proportional to the ratio of socioeconomic, not so much inputs, but demographics of like where people come from and what their standard of living is, etc., etc. So that we really there's a lot of work to do in this. There's a lot of contemplation and consideration, and given the size and the scale of this is way bigger than me. I need people's help, and I need you to sort of come up with your own ideas, your own individual thoughts. It's spit and put it in the spittoon, and then we'll see what's spat back, and we can all work on it together. And those of you who might be wondering about my T-shirt, so UTS Startups is it's a university in Sydney, a University of Technology in Sydney, and this whole venture that I'm working on is something that I've put through my UTS Startups, and this is the way that I'm looking to scale it and grow it. However, I'm also trying to get other people involved, and that's what the purpose of this video is to try and get you involved and have a look at the backstory of things that I've actually already put up so far, but also please contribute and help me out. Help me out, guys. This is a really good idea, and these ideas need other people involved to help realize them. So on that note, I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.